Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to be with you for this next module on Technology Enhanced Active Learning, or TEAL. Today is exciting because we're taking everything we've talked about so far and finally putting it into action. We are moving from theory to practice. Because let's be honest, we all know that the gap between a really great idea and an actual functioning lesson plan can sometimes feel like a massive canyon. So before we jump into the new material, let's do a quick recap of our TEAL journey so far. We kicked things off at step 1 by building a foundation on how people actually learn. We looked at key principles like retrieval practice, spaced practice, interleaving, and universal design for learning. Then, in step 2, we hit that really big aha moment. Active learning isn't defined by what students are physically doing just to stay busy, it's actually defined by what they're thinking. And that naturally brought us to step 3, understanding that our instructional strategies should always be chosen based on the thinking they encourage, rather than just the activity itself or whatever the newest technology happens to be.
Here is a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with a central question, then dive into collaborative learning, scenario-based learning, and problem-based learning. After that, we'll cover bricks, clicks, and teacher tricks before finally putting it all together. Okay, let's get into section 1, this central question, bridging strategy and instruction. We've talked a lot about individual strategies so far, but teaching isn't just about throwing a bunch of isolated activities at our students, right? We need a bridge. So how do we actually organize individual strategies into meaningful instruction? Well, many successful instructors answer this by organizing their teaching around broad instructional approaches. Rather than just relying on a single, one-off strategy, these approaches combine multiple strategies around a common instructional purpose. It's like building a larger ecosystem for learning. Today, we're going to explore 3 of the most widely used and effective methods for doing exactly this.
Moving on to section 2, collaborative learning, thinking with and from one another. Collaborative learning is built on a very specific, powerful philosophy. Students learn best by thinking with and from one another. Just think about that magical moment in class when a student explains a difficult concept to a peer, and you can practically see the light bulb go off for both of them. It's incredible. As they interact, they are actively serving as a catalyst for their peers' understanding. It's a completely reciprocal process where everybody wins. Now remember our golden rule. It is all about the thinking. When we use collaborative learning, we aren't just putting them in groups to chat. We are intentionally designing opportunities for students to explain ideas in their own words, compare differing perspectives, ask probing questions, provide constructive feedback, and really justify their reasoning to their peers. That's some heavy cognitive lifting. And what's super fascinating here is how we can achieve these exact same cognitive goals regardless of our teaching modality. In a traditional face-to-face classroom, what we'll call your bricks, you might use a classic think, pair, share or a gallery walk to get students comparing and justifying. But if you're teaching online or in a hybrid format, your clicks, you can achieve literally the exact same thinking through Canvas discussions, Zoom whiteboards, shared docs, Padlet, Lucid, or Canvas annotations. The medium changes, sure, but the underlying cognitive goal, it remains exactly the same. All right, let's look at section 3. Scenario-based learning, applying knowledge in realistic situations. As we dive into this one, I want you to take a second and imagine what a highly realistic situation might look like in your specific discipline. Scenario-based learning takes students completely out of the abstract and drops them right into the concrete. It puts them into situations where they're forced to actually apply what they know. It's a huge shift away from simply recalling memorized facts for a test and moves them toward taking real action within a specific context. The type of thinking encouraged here is intensely analytical. Students are pushed to analyze complex, sometimes messy situations, evaluate competing options, make concrete decisions, directly apply their knowledge, and, this is the crucial part, justify why they made the choices they did. It is absolutely fantastic for developing true professional judgment. So how do we build this? Well, in a physical classroom using your bricks, you might rely on physical case studies, role-playing exercises, ethical dilemmas, or live simulations. But with your clicks, you have some really incredible digital options at your fingertips. You can use interactive Cultura videos or even AI conversation partners to simulate clients or patients. You can use Canvas discussions built entirely around scenarios or branching scenarios. In fact, think about the faculty lounge discussions you've been participating in throughout this very course. That is a perfect real-world example of scenario-based learning in action. Which brings us to section 4, problem-based learning, investigating authentic problems over time. Problem-based learning is a bit of a paradigm shift for a lot of us. It flips the traditional model on its head. It begins with an authentic problem that students investigate over time. So instead of the instructor giving all the answers up front and then assigning a problem just for practice, the problem comes first. This intentionally shifts the burden of discovery right onto the student's shoulders. They actually have to figure out what they don't know before they can even begin to solve the problem. Because of this shift, the thinking encouraged here is incredibly rigorous. And yeah, sometimes it gets a bit messy, but it's a good messy. Students have to first identify their own learning needs. Then they gather evidence, evaluate possible solutions, constantly refine their thinking as new information inevitably comes to light, synthesize all that data, and ultimately reflect on their entire investigative process. To support this kind of intense investigative work, your bricks might include physical inquiry activities, design challenges, face-to-face collaborative research, and team projects. But if you're teaching online or in a mixed mode, your clicks step in beautifully. You can utilize Canvas collaborations, shared online workspaces like Google Docs or Microsoft Word Online, Lucid for visual mapping, and even AI brainstorming partners to really help students synthesize their ideas and solve the problem at hand. Now for Section 5, Bricks, Clicks, and Teacher Tricks, alleviating the overwhelm. Throughout this explainer, you've probably noticed the phrase bricks, clicks, and teacher tricks. Let's talk about how this mindset can actually alleviate some of that workload anxiety you might be feeling right now. The absolute core of this is our mantra. It's not the app, it's the application. Great teaching is never, ever about choosing technology over traditional instruction just for the sake of being modern or flashy. Next year, for sure, there's going to be a new trendy app we're all supposed to use, but guess what? The required student thinking remains exactly the same. Your job is to choose the right approach and the right tools to encourage the specific thinking you want to see. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. You're saying, okay, I love these ideas, but creating realistic scenarios or authentic problems totally from scratch sounds incredibly overwhelming. I hear you. The really good news is you absolutely do not have to start with a blank page. In your module review, we have provided links to some incredible, highly curated resources. Major universities and professional organizations have already developed high-quality materials that you can just take and adapt. You'll find collaborative activities from Cornell, extensive case studies from the National Center for Case Study Teaching and Science in Harvard, and fantastic problem-based materials from Merlot and the University of Delaware. It's basically a treasure trove. Furthermore, as you continue through TL1, you have access to a really cool optional tool, the TL1 Instructional Design Partner. This is a custom AI agent specifically designed to help you brainstorm collaborative activities, develop tailored scenarios, and create authentic problems for whatever modality you teach in, face-to-face, online, hybrid, mixed mode, you name it. It's basically like having an instructional design brainstorming buddy on call 24/7. Finally, Section 6, putting it all together, the Instructional Design Framework. Let's look at how all of this builds into the overarching instructional design framework you've been constructing this whole time. Step 1, we establish that learning depends on thinking. Step 2, we select our active learning strategies specifically because they encourage different kinds of thinking. And step 3, which is what we really dug into today, we use broad approaches like collaborative, scenario-based, or problem-based learning to organize those individual strategies into meaningful, cohesive instruction. The next module is going to guide you step by step as you apply this very framework directly to your own courses. I want to leave you with this final, really important thought. Great teaching isn't about collecting more apps or just stringing together random activities. It is about intentionally designing opportunities for students to think. Whether you teach with bricks, clicks, or some combination of both, always remember, it's not the app, it's the application. So what opportunities for thinking are you intentionally designing today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I seriously cannot wait to see what you all build in the next module.